sister, somebody's uncle, somebody's aunt that tells you that this is the worst thing you're ever going to go through in your entire life, don't listen to them. Think of it like when you were in grammar school and you were going to go to middle school. They said, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be the worst experience you've ever had because it's really tough there. And then you went to middle school and that was okay. And then you were going to go to high school and they said, that's going to be terrible because you do so much work and so forth. And that wasn't bad either. Here's what happens with this process. It's real simple. If you follow directions, okay, this is more for the student. You go on, you look at an application, and you read directions. Now, ladies, we all know that sometimes men, like in driving, you know, they don't like directions. They say they're going to get there, even though your navigation system says go one way. As guys, we tend to have a better way to get there. But this is one process where following the directions really eliminates a lot of problems. Now, the thing that's made it so much better, in our opinion, is because it's become more technological. So everything's done online. Our students are technologically, they're advanced. You're the natives, we're the immigrants. You've been doing it since you were like little kids. When you talk to our kids about a rotary phone, they have no idea what it is. They have been alive, their whole life we've always had cell phones, okay? And I don't mean those big ones like in Seinfeld, you know, something like that. I'm talking about real cell phones. Now, you can basically run your whole life from your phone, which we find that a lot of our students do a lot of that. You know, their email, they check things out. So all I'm saying to start out is please, please, please follow directions. Parents, please, please, please let your daughter and son be part of the process, unless you're planning to go to college with them. Now, if you're going to go with them, that's a whole different story. Then you can fill it out, and you can both get accepted, and I know the kids will be real happy knowing that their parents are coming with them to college, all right? So, start off, complete your application. Primarily, it's done online. Check to see if there are any forms to print. That's why I say check. I'm going to University of Maryland. Maryland requires some sort of a counselor form for every freshman. And year in and year out, somebody doesn't have the form. And a lot of these schools will do it online. So make sure if there's any forms that have to be completed. Okay. There's a record release form, and I don't believe I didn't bring it. It's a pink form. The law says we cannot send out any information for a student that's under 18 unless the student signs and the parent signs. And what you're giving us permission to do is send out your transcript with your academic records. That's it, just your academic records. And possibly, what else? That's it, really, your academic records. And we send them to colleges, universities, scholarship programs that you might request, or the military. That's it. We don't send anything out. No discipline records go. The only thing on your transcript, there is, you know, something about your absences. But trust me, unless the absences impact on your academics, they generally don't become a question, contrary to popular belief. If your student is over 18 years of age, you don't have to sign it, right? I don't agree with that. I think you should know what's going on. Like I said, we want the students involved. We also want the parents involved. Okay. So let's say you've done that. Okay, you've applied to a bunch of schools, and we'll get involved in that in a little bit. But you've applied to schools. That's usually how the process starts. You apply. Then what you do, you bring the records release form to the transcript office. All right. Now, you got the form, any additional forms to school officials, an addressed envelope for each college or college you're applying to. And I'm going to explain why in a second. Because this got a little confusing a week ago, but we've come to a monumental decision. There's a $2 processing fee. That covers everything. We have to send mid-year grades out, right, to all the schools you applied to. We have to send final grades out to all the schools. So the district asks us to, you know, like take care of the postage and all that other stuff that comes involved. Now, we say at the bottom, Allow 3 weeks for processing, from the time you hand it in till the time it gets processed. Does it normally take 3 weeks? No. Could it take 3 weeks? Possibly, all right? But we're talking about our end of the deal, not your end. Deadlines are deadlines, and when a school says the student must apply by this deadline, that means the student. If they say all records and all supporting documents must be in by the deadline, which most schools don't say, okay, you have to adhere to those deadlines, you know? But why we say 3 weeks? Here's what's changed dramatically in this. From October 15th to December 15th, they are the peak times for applications. So last year, we processed over 3,800 applications. So if I tell you that 60% of those were done, more than 60% in that 2-month period, that's a lot of processing, because you're going to hear how the process goes and you'll understand why we say give yourself time. Now, here's where I'm coming from, right? You got a deadline of November 1st. I don't care if you're, to me, if you're number 1 in the class and you come in and say, look, I've been this great kid, great student, and here it is. I just got back from Halloween. Could you take my applications and get them in? And the answer is no. In other words, other people follow processes. We're not going to let somebody at the end, and I'm not saying that number 1 student would do that, but we're not going to let people jump over people because of your lack of planning. That's not fair, okay? We'll get it when we can get it. But again, the process has changed, so we don't become as critical to deadlines as you do. Okay. This is an envelope, okay? Now, I'm serious. We thought we were like, you know, really kind of smart by putting this up a couple years ago, but then it crossed my mind. A lot of people don't get mail anymore. Kids don't, you know, email, Twitter, you know, Instagram, what else? Go ahead, Mr. Brett. Did I cover all the biggies? Okay. My Twitter account, you know, hashtag, how am I doing today, you know, tomorrow, hashtag, what's going on, hashtag, hashtag. Okay. When we ask you to give us an envelope, we want the address of the school's admissions office on it. We don't want a stamp. We don't want a return address. We'll take care of that. It doesn't look good when you're sending documents to a school with your home address on it. Looks a little fraudulent. So we would rather let us take care of that. Now, there's a reason why we want this. If we are mailing documents, which some schools still require, you know, we'll take care of all that for you, okay? Now, before I go to this, let me come back a second. Now, how many, if I say to you common application, how many know what I'm talking about? All right, good. This year, for the first time, North Penn High School, our common application process, we are going to electronically send all transcripts to the Common App schools, all right, or to the Common Application, who will then send them to the schools. Now, when I get to Common App, this will make more sense. Here's what happened. It looked like that eliminated the envelope. If you're sending electronically, and we thought this too, then what do you need an envelope for? Well, here's the problem. 3,800 applications. You gotta have control of when they went out, when they were received. In our old process, everything that went out has a postcard attached. It's a stamped, self-addressed postcard that comes back to us where the college or university says, we received all these documents on this particular date. So when you apply to a college, you go to the transcript office, our database enters the date you requested the school's, you know, application information to be sent. The second column tells us when everything was processed. The third column tells us when the school said they got them. Now, why these postcards are critical to us, because every year we have colleges and universities claiming they don't have documents, and they do that by sending you an email. Meanwhile, we have in our office a card from them that says that they have all those documents. So when I'm elaborating this a little too much, but why we still need to send this card, because there's no way with the common application for us as the school to know that they actually got the information. You're going to find out if you go through the whole process of Common App. Common App even says to the student, you may not get a confirmation email from the school that they received your material when you submitted it. Now, my theory is if they take your money, that's usually a good indication that they got your application, but that's not guaranteed. Okay, so now we're going to look at step 4. Who would like to do this? All right, Mrs. McCreary.
Okay. How many students here have taken their SATs or their ACTs? Fabulous. How many are signed up to take them in October or November? Terrific. What colleges are expecting is that you notify College Board and have your scores sent directly from College Board to all the colleges that you're applying to. They're not considered official if I send them. If Mrs. Allender sends them, they have to come directly from College Board to the university. If you haven't put them down on the test dates in October and November, you get 4 freebies each time you take the SATs, where you can choose 4 schools for them to be sent to. If you don't use them, you lose them, and you have to pay later to have them sent. So if you're signed up for October or November, double check that you're having your score sent, because that will be included. Okay, all the schools are going to have mid-year reports. They're going to want to see what your grades look like after the end of the first and second marking periods. We create a special form that has the letter grade of your all the classes you had in first and second marking period. It is not your report card. It doesn't show teacher comments or absences, but it lets the college know that you're still in the classes you indicated on your application, and that you're still maintaining academic excellence. And it can also show improvement. If you had a rough junior year or 10th grade year, it can also show you're on the upswing. The transcript automatically sends those after the first semester ends. And that's usually, I don't know, it's been ending the end of January, so they go out around the middle of February. You will get emails from the colleges saying, we don't have this yet, we don't have this yet. We will send them out, but every high school kind of has a different ending to their semester, so they don't all arrive at the schools at the same time. You got it? Did you skip one? Okay. Usually between, if you're applying to rolling admission schools, you'll know fairly quickly if you've been accepted or not. But if you have schools that have specific deadlines of, say, January 1st, January 15th, you'll be notified in March whether or not they've accepted you. You have until May 1st to make a final decision, and then you need to commit to them. Usually have to send in money, of course, money, and then notify the other schools that you're not coming, so that they're not expecting you to come there, and they can open spots perhaps on a waiting list. North Penn has a senior survey. We actually have 2 senior surveys. One will be coming out next week, and this is a form that the counselors use to help supplement our recommendations. It's also something we use when scholarship opportunities come across our desk. But in the spring, there's an online senior survey, and this is where you tell us your final decision school, and we will use the information on that survey to send your final transcript to that school. And if you don't fill it out, we will hunt you down. I covered that final grade report. Back to you.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did want to mention about the final grades. The school year has to end to have final grades. This happens every year. Remember, There are some schools that are done school, and around the country, they're done in May. They're done Memorial Weekend, right? Last year, because all the snow, schools in the eastern part of the country were done, Jersey schools were done like towards the end of June. We were like the 18th. So what happens is you may get a generated email from the school that you're going to, and they do such a nice job. They say, we need your final grades. Okay, great. Then the second one says, we need your final grades. And the third one says, if we don't get your final grades, we will withdraw our application, admissions, et cetera, et cetera. All right, don't panic on that. In other words, what happens is, if the school year ended this year on the 18th, the reports and the final grades weren't done for another week. So then it's a question with the seniors, and you have to know this. For a school to accept your final transcript, it also has to have the graduation date. They want everything finalized on that. And I'm here to tell you, we've never had anybody they took back their admissions because they didn't get that paper. So please do not panic, okay? Now, these are some dates to remember. We're trying something different this year. We're going to have 2 financial aid nights, okay? One is on October 7th, and the other one's October 22nd. At the first one, we're having a gentleman who's spoken here before. Maybe you've heard him, named Arnold Jenelson. He's going to be here. And on the 22nd, we're having a woman who's been here before also, Doreen Corliss. She's going to do a presentation. They are financial aid professionals, and those types of programs, you have to come to see them because we don't, because they're outside people, we don't televise them, okay? Now, there's 2 other dates that are coming up. Montgomery County Community College has a regional college fair every year. It's still a good opportunity for seniors. And it's generally held at Montgomery County Community College, but because they're doing renovations there at their gymnasium area, this year it's going to be held on October 8th, 6:30 to 8:30 at Plymouth White Marsh High School on Germantown Pike. So we put that date out. Also, if you want, this might be more for underclassmen, October 26th, a group called NACAC, National Association of College Admissions Counselors. They run a big national college fair in Philadelphia at the Convention Center, where there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 schools, art schools, specialty schools, technical schools. They got them all. And Mrs. McCreary already said October, November, December, and January, SAT and ACT dates in those months. Now, probably the most important person in the room is Mrs. Joanne Allender. Could you step up, please? Come on, don't get embarrassed here. Now, she told me she will not talk. Mrs. Joanne Allender she runs our transcripts. She's the one that coordinates the 3,800 forms. She's the wonderful lady that you may call and talk to. She's very patient. She's very caring. So please be nice to her. Right? She's critical to your children. She's critical to us. Did I say that right?
You said it right, and I love my job.
And she loves her job. So she is the pretty face behind the kind voice if you talk to her, and she's very, very kind and understanding to our students. Okay, now, we want to spend some time on the Common Application. You go to commonapp.org. It's accepted in more than, now it's up to 500 and really 548 to be exact schools. Schools often may have a supplemental page that they'll add to it, which we'll reference. So here's the theory on Common App. Common Application is run by colleges and universities. That's why there's no charge for you to use the Common Application process. If you are applying to multiple schools that use the Common Application, it's to your advantage to use it. So you do a great job on one application, and then as you apply to a particular school, you hit the submit button and your information goes to a school. You apply to another school, you hit the submit button. It's a great concept. Now, major state universities don't use it. Penn State doesn't use it. Maryland doesn't use it. Surprisingly, right now, the University of Pittsburgh doesn't use it. Temple just went to it last year, but Temple says you can use our application or the Common App. University of Delaware uses it. Now, if I went over, Michigan State doesn't use it, Ohio State. The major universities, because they're in a whole different thing. In other words, they don't want all this information. So I'm just telling you. But here's our theory. If the school gives you an option of the Common App or their application, and you only have, and that's the only Common App school that you're going to have, then I say don't use it. It's when you have 2 or 3 or 4 or more schools. Which leads us to the question always, how many schools should I apply to, right? The answer, how many do you want to apply to? The record right now, the North Penn High School record, which was hit 2 years ago, is 32. I was personally upset because a student of mine 5 years ago had the existing record of 22, and it was just totally destroyed. Now, here's what happens. Do I think that you should apply to 32 schools? Absolutely not. Because here's what happens. When you look at the schools that the person's applying to, now, I hate to bring sports into it, but think of it in terms of leagues. It's like applying to every Big Ten school, every ACC school, every Patriot League school, every Ivy League school. They're not all alike. So somewhere along the line, we would hope you would look and differentiate and say, okay, if I'm going to look at state universities, these 2 appeal to me, not, 48 of them or something like that. But if you want to do them, knock yourself out. The only thing as parents, you know that if you're paying $50, $60 a shot, times 32, that's like $1,800, It's a lot of cheesesteaks, All right. I'm just bringing that up. Now, so we say it's designed to save you time and energy. Now, last year, they revamped the whole thing. People panicked. But the neat thing is the seniors didn't panic last year because they had never used it before. The people that panicked were the counselors, not here, at other schools, and some teachers and so forth who did recommendations because there was a change. From the student's point of view, if you don't have any prior, perspective, it doesn't matter, and the kids thought it was good. The problem is they ran into glitches at the beginning, which you might expect. But because of the glitches, they started this thing for counselors where they were almost giving us daily updates on the Common App, which was terrific. Okay, so you're going to see some of this in a second. Now, here's the thing with the Common App. Unless there's a specific question, okay, let me go about essays, all right? And I want you to chime in. People say, all right, what should I do? The Common App has prompts. They haven't changed in 2 years. How many are working on a Common App essay, right? So they got the 5 prompts. Now, sometimes people say, well, what should I write as an essay? Okay? Well, we say, write about yourself. That's who you know the best. You don't have to, I don't care what anybody says. Now hear me out on this, and you don't have to believe this. So get another opinion. But think about this. People tell you that the essay is the deal breaker. The essay can get you in or get you out. People charge you hundreds of dollars to get that essay to be the best to get you in. And I ask this question. I'm just posing the question. How does a school know that you wrote the essay? They don't. They're not there sitting with you. So let's say I'm a millionaire, which I'm not. I pay somebody, some Pulitzer Prize winning writer. I get them to write my child's essay. What if your son or daughter has an older sibling that's already gone through this process and happens to work in that kind of field? So I'm just posing the question to you. And I've said this in public many, many times. You can't convince me that the essay is this deal breaker, because if it is, then there's something wrong. Then if it is the deal breaker, then I say everybody get somebody else to write it for them. But don't quote me on it even though it's on TV. All right? Now, Mrs. McCreary came up with this one. You did. Admissions officers read a lot of essays. So if you think in terms of 5 paragraphs, one side of a paper, that's enough. Because think of it this way. If you write an 8-paragraph essay and numbers 7 and 8 are your best, they may have started to doze off at paragraph 5 or 6, right? So you want to make your point. Now with Common App, they give you things to choose from. So you do the essay, you submit it, and all the schools agree that we'll accept that essay, okay? Now, the key thing here is, if it's Common App, you're using it for all the same schools. But here's the key rule. Never use the name of the school in the essay. Never. You know, my whole life, I've always wanted to go to XYZ college. And then you inadvertently send it out to ABC college, right? Which then sends back to you, well, good luck at XYZ because you're not coming here, all right? So, now that goes for schools that are not Common App, right? You can kind of use the same essay. All right, so teacher letters of recommendation. Yes, good.
In the old days, we used to get the paper applications. We used to get the essays so we could read them. We would proof them, and we would know what our students were putting out there. That's not happening anymore. So I don't know what my students are writing. I don't know how well it's written. It's so easy to hit send. My advice to the students would be, make sure somebody else sees it. If it's not your parent, it's your best friend, it's our teachers in the writing lab after school, but don't submit it until another pair of eyes have looked at it.
Great. Now, a lot of our English teachers, and I think of my right students, a lot of the English teachers are, as part of their first assignments, are doing something involving a college essay, okay? And your own counselor, I'm always available. In K-25, I'll look at it, you know. I'm not going to be the grammatical expert, you know. I'm more content-oriented. Okay, now, 2 letters of recommendation. Now, we say 2 letters. Here's a key thing, and I hope you've done this. Some schools will take 3 letters of recommendation. Some will take 4, some don't want them, okay? And I'll allude to certain schools. Penn State, they don't want anything. They just want numbers. They want your transcript, they want your SAT scores, and they'll go from there. You're going to have a personal statement in your Penn State, you know, application. But if you have somebody send a letter of recommendation, they don't use it because they have 85,000 applications and they don't really have time to, you know, read them, okay? So what we say, and hopefully you've done this, and if you haven't, it's okay. You go to the teacher, you ask them, would they be agreeable to do a letter of recommendation. Some of you did that at the end of last year, which was great. Now, here's what I always look at, and I taught math for 30 years, okay? Don't start adding years up, and please, Mrs. McCree, don't say in the old days. Say formerly, previously. Old is like a final destination. Older or previously means you're still moving along, okay? So, here's what happens. Pick your teachers wisely. Somebody's going to say positive things about you. It does not have to be an English teacher, but it could very well be. If you're thinking of majoring in math or science, then I think one of them should be somebody in the math or the science. If you want to do the arts, kind of think of it that way. The recommendation might be related to the subject area that you're interested in majoring in. So what you do is you go to the teacher and you ask them, will you do a recommendation for me? They say, fine, I'll do it. Now, once they do that, you have a right, notice I said you have a right to go back and see how they're doing on that, okay? It's not being like annoying, it's being persistent. There's a difference, it's a fine line, right? So be persistent, how's it going? But not every day. How's my letter of recommendation? It's going good, it's gonna get worse, you know? No, I didn't say that, I'm kidding. Okay, our teachers do a great job of letters of recommendation. That, for the parents, trust me on that. They usually do it in a letter format. Sometimes, depending upon the school, some people will use a combination. There's a format where there's check blocks and so forth, and they can write a written statement with it. So some do that, but they do a great job. Now, here's the key thing. 2 things. Give your teacher ample time. Don't go up to them and say, I need him by tomorrow. No, But remember, the deadline is for you in the application. The trailing stuff, teacher recommendations, they don't hold that against you, okay? Keep that in mind. The other thing is if you have a resume. Now, not a job resume, just a resume talking about yourself. What you do academically, any activities in and out of school, and anything unique. Met with somebody the other day, and he said, "Well, I don't have a lot of activities," but he has traveled to more countries than I could remember. Okay, so I think that's a unique part of his, story. Well, I'm your teacher in math, and I think you're just great in pre-calculus, but unless you share that information with me, how do I know it? So the teacher's going to say what a great student you are, the depth of your understanding, your knowledge. And then when you give them that other information, this student's also involved in our theater department. They're doing great in music. They're involved in sports. They work in the community with their church, their synagogue, their mosque, whatever, okay? So all those things count. So the more information you can share, the better, okay? Now, I'm going to give you we gave you a list of some resources. I did it for college planning and financial aid. But rather than give it to you again, so you got our website. The one that we love is collegeboard.org, big future. Go on there. It's under college planning. It gives you everything and anything you ever wanted to know. And it's updated. The thing that it gives you statistics on schools in terms of applications, acceptance rates, average SATs, and all that kind of stuff. So as you're applying, you kind of know where you fit in. And we do have college reps coming in. Today we had Penn State Catholic University. We've got a bunch coming in, like to see my thinking. They're all coming in October. So they want to get it done in September and October because then they know you're going to apply by then. And then your guidance counselor or us. All right, now, let's talk about a couple of things. So if some of you I've met and we've talked, and people say, well, what are the factors that schools look at? Okay, number one, your grades. Number two, your grades. Number three, your grades. Number four, number five. Your grades become the most critical thing because your grades make up your class rank, your GPA, and all that. And when we say your grades, also the rigor of the courses you've taken. If AP is where you need to be, then be there. If honors is where you need to be there and do a great job. If 5.0 is where you need to be and do a great job. In other words, it's not only the rigor of what you're doing, but how well you're doing there. We like to say sometimes, no sense in being in this course to get a D when I could have been in this course to get a B, okay? And that's a misunderstanding that sometimes I think people have. They say, well, I didn't really do well, but I took great courses, didn't I? Okay, good, absolutely. So when I'm looking for a plumber, I want somebody that's really not good, but he knows how to do sinks and he knows how to do, but he doesn't know how to do any of them really very well, okay? Standardized testing becomes the second thing. Now, you've heard this thing of standardized testing optional. How many have heard that? Temple University is doing this now. And what Temple University says, if you don't want us to use SATs, ACTs, or something, then you're going to have to do 4 short essays. And here's the thing, as far as I understand it, I haven't seen it yet. They told us last year they're going to be timed essays that you're going on their application and you're going to do them there. So in other words, it's not like, okay, have that person that you're paying that money to do these short essays for you. But I don't know that yet, okay? The thing is, what you look at in colleges, there's some are not putting a lot of focus on standardized testing, and that's okay, and they'll tell you that. All right, and then financial aid, okay, we said we give you those dates, come and listen and get all that money. All right, so here's the common application. Now, this is what it looks like. You go on, you're the applicant, okay? Please, students, use your name. Use the name that you're going to use, not Skippy, okay, or anything like that, not your nickname. In other words, what your formal name is. Here's the key thing. Always think, what did I use for my SATs? What am I using for my application? Try to make it to be equal, okay? So it looks like this. Now they call this a single landing page. So you have an applicant, you have a members, that'll tell you all the schools that are involved, and there's the recommenders, which would be your teachers or your counselors. Okay? What I did, and a lot of the other counselors, I created an account every year. So I'm a student, because that's the easiest way for me to see if there's any glitches. In other words, fill it out. You know, I'm really scamming them on my birth date, you know, because I think if I put my birth date down, I told them I was applying to schools, they would probably just reject it. Okay? Now, this is the key thing, I think. It's a help center. Anytime you have a question on any part, you can go right to the help center. In fact, the help center is right there as you're doing parts of it, so it's really, really good. Okay? And students, there it is, Facebook and Twitter. Okay? Now, here's the thing with Common App. They don't have a phone number. I don't even know where they exist. They're somewhere. They don't have a phone number. You can only communicate to them by email, Facebook, or Twitter. That's it. And that's always been that way, because they don't want to get on the phone and discuss stuff. Okay, now here's what happens. There's the common application, there's the dashboard, and there's My Colleges. So the common applications, where they're going to ask you all these questions. The dashboard just tells you all this stuff across the top, which you'll see. And My Colleges is where you're going to decide. So the tabs help you navigate, and I'm sorry for reading it, but what happens, you see the dashboard, My Colleges, Common App, Recommenders, College Search. So under Common Application, there's your profile, there's your family. So parents' marital status, married. With whom do you make your permanent home? Do you have any children? Now you might go like, what? Do I have any children? Because you got to remember, this Common App can be used for people that are older, you know? They don't have to just be in high school. So now if you're in high school and you're married, that's okay too. Okay? Now, Common Application, you see it tells you these areas. Now, if you could look over on this one side here, and I don't know if you can see it. See the Help Center? There's like, they're giving you directions as you're coming down. So we think that that makes it very, very easy. Okay, there's my household. There's my Help Center. Now there we go. It's just saying, okay, parents' marital status. Put parent 1, put parent 2. Okay? Now, parents' marital status. Okay, they're divorced. With whom do you make your permanent home? Do you wish to list any step-parents? You can or you don't have to, okay? So you do have control of this, which I think is good. Now you're going to look up your high school. Now, this you can do, but our thing is we're 392155. That's our CEB code, but you don't even, if you don't know that, you can still look it up. So this is like, all right, let's say, all right, my high school name. I'll go to Fairfax High. Well, there's a bunch of them. So if you just keep working your way down, it's going to eventually get to your high school. Now just remember, there is another North Penn High School in Blossburg, Pennsylvania. So, you know, make sure you're using our right code. And that Blossburg's out in the middle of the state, is it not? Somebody know where that is? Did anybody go there? All right, accurate address and CEB code will automatically populate it. Okay, so now school information, you can enter it manually. Now, here's the key thing, test taken. You can report, you can self-report your SATs and ACTs if you want to. You don't have to, because you're going to send them anyway, okay? So that's strictly up to you. Does it hurt you? No, if you don't report them. Does it help you if you do? You know, I mean, it speeds the process up, I guess. So if you say yes, then you have to highlight which ones you took, okay? And then what you're going to say, okay, I took the SAT test, I took the AP subject, or I took the AP test, all right? Or I took subject tests. So whatever you took, you put them down and you can self-report your scores, okay? This was last year, their big bonus reminder. All right, now there's some key things here. Once an application is submitted, you can return to the application. Now, when I say the application, right, I'm talking about the common application, right? So you've done your common app and you've done that, as opposed to submitting it to the school. But here's what happens. Once an application is submitted, a student can return to the app and edit it for future colleges. So let's say I applied to my first school, and then I decided there was something I didn't like. You can go back into the Common App, change it. Now, it won't change it for the school that you sent it to, but any school thereafter, it'll change it, okay? So you can make adjustments. Now, you can return to the testing page and change testing response to no. So let's say you sent it out and then you had second thoughts. You can go back and say, for every next schools, no, I don't want it sent. And it's not like one school's going to know you sent it to them and you didn't send it to the other. That's the other thing, sometimes students and parents ask, do the schools know where you're applying to through Common App? And the answer is no, okay? Now, answering no or electing to report a different set of tests will hide but not erase any test the students may have entered. So think about this. You put all your test scores in. You send them to the first school. Now you go back and you say, no, I don't want them sent. They're not out of the system. They're just not going to be sent to the next school or the next school or the next school, okay? And any test scores entered in a previously submitted application. Now, this is kind of, I think, funny. Not funny, but humorous that you could do this. If they were entered into a previously submitted application, they can be retrieved by changing the testing response back to yes, okay? Now, I'm not so sure about that. I'm just reporting here. This I got to see. It's like when you send an email and you insult somebody, and then you say, "Oh, I want that back." Well, that's great, but I think if they open it, it's too late, is it not, Mr. Brett? He's going to get up here. He's our technical guy. All right. Now, activity page. You put any activities that you want to put in, and we're talking, and there's a list of them. There's a drop-down box. Okay, so athletics, JV varsity, okay, baseball, highest position held. Oops, hold on. Okay, let's come back. Varsity captain. Now, remember, nobody's going to call up Mr. Brett, Mr. Monero, or any of the coaches and say, was this guy the captain, But I don't recommend, it'd be tough if like 8 people applied from one school and they all said that they were the captain, or, there were 27 drum majors for the, for the band. I don't know if that'd be good, all right? But what it allows you to do is you put the activity type, you put the name, you put all this information. The up and down arrows let you rearrange the order of your activities. Now, that's the key thing. So you put them in, then you look at them, you say, well, it looks like the most important activity. Student government, I move that up. You can move them around. And then basically, if you put 10 activities down, you can have them in the order of what you think you want them to know is your first, second, third, fourth, okay? And you can change that. The other thing is, underneath the particular line, it's a 50-character text field. And any details is 150 characters. And, they hold you to it. It won't let you work. But it does tell you that when you put athletics, baseball, JV, varsity, that's not counted against the 50 characters, okay? Because that's coming from a drop-down box. Okay, now, essay changes. Like I said, the prompts are pretty much the same. So it says, some students have a background, you can see these. Recount an incident or time when you experienced failure. How did it affect you? What lessons did you learn? Now, sometimes you get a lot of pros and cons about essays. There was one article I read where somebody said, well, don't tell them about, that you scored the winning, points in a game or hit the home run or something. Well, if it's in the context of something bigger than just that, I say do it. If you had a tragedy in your family where you lost either a parent or a sibling or it could be a grandparent or something like that, if that becomes a focal thing in your life and that has kind of, I don't know, changed the way you approach things, then that could be that would be something you do, yet some experts say, oh, don't put that down, okay? Now, you've probably seen some things where some colleges and universities who had their own little essay, you know, they ask these tricky essays. Like, if you were something in the forest, what would you want to be? If you were a tree, what part of the tree would you want to be, or something like that? You know, now, if that's how they're selecting their kids, you know, to go to school, I don't know about that, you know, and I'm not going to say what school that is because I won't incriminate. Okay, now, 650 word count. If you do it on the Common App, it'll do the count for you, okay? So if anything that has a count to it, they'll do it. If you upload something, you did something, you know, like you did on your computer and you upload it, then it doesn't do it, okay? So let's say I did it here. So they said, okay, write an essay, 250 to 650 words. It says, okay, you only entered 77. So it gives you that. Now, it says add 173 more. Now it says, okay, great essay, but you got to remove 36 because they said they don't want anything more than 650. So this does a good job on that, I think, okay? Now, if cutting or pasting, the text box will accommodate the full amount of text even if it exceeds the word count because it's not counting it, okay? All right, now, you know, I know as you're sitting there, you're going like, oh, this is really exciting stuff, you know. But listen to me now, okay? I understand that. But if you understand some of the things you want to look for, then this thing with the Common App becomes really, really simple. And then later on, we can all get together and talk about how exciting it was to do this. Now, here's a key part of this. You select your colleges. Okay, I'm going to try to add a little excitement in this. So now on the dashboard, next to the word dashboard is the word my colleges. Okay, so where am I applying to? So 2 schools here. One, Mrs. McCreary went to Gettysburg, right? So Connecticut College and Gettysburg College are there. Now, I want you to look up there and you'll notice next to Gettysburg College, there's a green check, which means Mrs. McCreary has submitted her application to her alma mater. We look at Connecticut College. Now, whether we thought we did or we didn't, because we have those little like circles and they're not green, we haven't submitted that application yet, okay? I like this. There's also, you can see there's a trash can on the right. Does everybody see that's a trash can? So if you want to trash it, you don't want to do it, you can get rid of it. You know, not Gettysburg, of course. No. Now, this is what I like. If you highlight the triangle on Gettysburg, it will say that you applied fall 2013, right? Regular decision, or 14 now. So we're like a year behind on this. The application was submitted December 15th. You know that. But remember what I said way at the beginning. Our problem is we don't know for fact that they got it. Common App is saying. What happens is if it's not there, then the issue becomes Common App in Gettysburg, not you, okay? Common App, member screen, assign recommendations, right? Now you see there's a writing supplement, and it says it's incomplete. Okay, now here's what happens. A lot of schools, if you apply to any Ivy school, they have a writing supplement, which means that even if you do the Common App, whatever, they have essays that they want done. Now, the key thing is this. You can submit your application to that school, and the writing supplement comes afterwards. Okay, I repeat. You submit your application to the school, the writing supplement comes later. Okay? Now, if the school, as part of the Common Application, has some little questions that they want you to answer, if you don't answer those questions, you can't submit the application, okay? Little questions embedded in the Common App from, say, Gettysburg. If you don't answer them and you try to submit the application, it won't let you do it. So I like that, okay? Now, we highlight Connecticut College. This is the other thing. It gives you all the information, the contact information, the application deadlines, the fees, all this kind of stuff, okay, which I think is good. Now, your academics, Now this is really Connecticut College asking you this. What are you applying for, okay? So each college gets to select questions that they can put in here, as well as the responses a student can provide. So Connecticut College not only asks the question, but they put the answers that are the potential answers, okay? So just pay attention to all this stuff. Now, the writing supplement allows each college to ask short answer and essay questions. They can be either text or entry, or both, okay? Note that while a college-specific questions are submitted along with the Common App, the writing supplement is submitted afterward, all right? Now remember, if I'm sitting where you're sitting, and it's the first time you've gone through this, like stuff is coming like left and right, you know? It's like you're like, what is he talking about? When you go back and you get on the Common App and it's in front of you, then, you know, hopefully you'll say, okay, I get it now, all right? Now, if you understand all this perfectly, then I'm concerned, okay? All right, now, we want to answer your questions on Common App. It's a big thing. We're not minimizing any of the other ones. Now, come on up, Mr. Brett. You know, he's ready. He's getting set, you know. Why we focused on it? Because there are so many more students using the Common App when you have that many schools. So we thought, even if it's time-consuming, we just kind of go over it. Now, here's what's also important to us. Mr. Pat Brett, he's our technological guru, right? And I'm not going to say anything more other than he's all about Twitter, Facebook, and everything else in between.
Just want to let you know that we have a Twitter for the Guidance Department. And if you see the followers right there, the 197, that's now up to 199. So someone please make it 200. Thank you. Very tempted to take out my cell phone and do a Ellen Oscars selfie that we can post on for college application night, but that's really not going to work. What we post up here is just information. We don't want to, tell anything about personal information, general information about stuff that students need for everything here at North Penn High School that relates to guidance. So as you can see, we have the week from the night. This was posted last week. There was another post that I put up today. I'm sorry, it's a tweet. And, we will get information as the year goes on for the younger grades as far as the course selection and report cards. We'll be talking about that. So parents, students, please follow us to get information on what we're doing, and there will be plenty of information going out throughout the year. The next thing here is a thing called Edmodo. A lot of teachers have used this in the past. I don't know, students, have you guys been introduced to this? This is something that as a guidance staff we're just getting into, and this is mine. I made 3 folders so far, and this is for my class of 2015. And this will, hopefully, I'll give a pin to my students, and they'll be able to see what I post, and it'll go directly to their phone or their email. And we're going to try to pilot this so that every guidance counselor has this, their availability, so that something along the lines of, to the class of 2015, so I don't have to post it on Twitter, or we don't tweet it on Twitter, saying, make sure you get your applications due. The October deadline's coming up. You have 3 weeks on, your November deadline's coming up. Make sure it's in on October 10th. So just so that we're making sure we're reaching all of our students the way they reach each other. Okay? Thank you.
Then we're going to get questions. We're going to get the other mic. We'll go around. Okay, so looks like that's it. Now, here's what happens. This is like being in class, all right? Now, hopefully, we wouldn't have just been doing instruction for an hour, because there's a theory in education. Some people don't know it. You take the student's age and you add 15, and that's the total amount of time that somebody can stay on one thing. So as a teacher, if I'm lecturing and I figure I'm with a bunch of 15-year-olds, then I figure after 23 minutes, I better be doing something else. Now, the only thing is I don't know if that works with 2-year-olds, I got some grandkids, and if you tried that 17 minutes, it just wouldn't work. So here's what we want to do. We're going to take about 15 minutes of questions with our folks at, North Penn Television, and we want to thank them. young people coming out and all the staff, Craig Wireman back in the studio doing this. We really appreciate it. Bob Gilmer and Mary Fakis for everything they do. We really appreciate that it gets out there. And they do a great job. I think everybody would agree. When you see all the activities that they cover, I mean, I live in another district where I'm telling you, it's not even close. Not even close. So, Mr. Brett's got a mic. Mrs. McGarman's got a mic. And we would like some questions. And you got one over there, I got one here. We would like you to say the question out loud, because one thing I always hate when you go somewhere and somebody goes, and they start answering the question, nobody hears the question. Who's first?
I got one back here.
Whoa. The suspects are in the back.
All right, on the common application, it had the date that you started at your high school. For us, would that be our first day of 10th grade or 9th grade?
You know, that's a really good question. I'll tell you why it's a great question. How many in here are athletes? Okay, if you go to the eligibility center, you have to put that in 9th grade you were at North Penn High School. I got to be honest with you. As far as I'm concerned, you could say you started here in 9th grade, which would be, if I'm correct, 2011. Because sometimes I think it confuses. The majority of high schools are 9 through 12. So, you know, we're not sending you any middle, you know, our transcript has all your grades. It does have what you did in 9th grade, but I think you could do it either way. It's not going to be a deal breaker on a Common App. All right, I got a question over here. Do you have a question?
Why would you self-report if North Penn High School sends the information out? Is there a benefit to that, or?
Okay, now, when you say self-report in terms of we don't send the SATs, you send them out. If we're talking SATs, okay? Now, one thing did come up about the self-report I want to mention. Some people, there's a school called the University of South Carolina. Them and about 2 others are doing a thing that they want the student to self-report their grades. They take their transcript, they enter all this data in, which I think really they're making the kids do an awful lot. And then they upload an unofficial transcript and send it to them. We still have to know that you're doing that, because we still have to send your mid-year grades. We still have to send your final grades. They have to know that you graduated from high school. So if you apply to, like, say, a South Carolina, and you don't let the transcript office know, and we're not involved in the process, well, they're not going to get anything from other than what you sent. Now, in terms of the SAT, you know, I just think the self-reporting is they can look at it and scan it right away, but they're going to require you, if most schools do, that they want those standardized test scores anyway. So we send a transcript. You do the SATs. Yes. Go ahead.
One other thing on the SATs, just a word of warning. They also take 2 to 3 weeks to send out your scores. So think ahead also when you're sending out or when you're requesting the SAT scores also.
Yeah, you know what? Mrs. McCreary made that point. Those of you that are taking the SATs in October, you can still go back into your registration and put those 4 schools in. Here's the number. When the test is taken, which is going to be October 11th, at 18 days, on October 29th, they are electronically sent out. So if you take them in October, then on the 29th they go. If you take them in October and you wait till the 29th to see them, as Mrs. McGurman's saying, now you get online, it may take another 3 weeks for them to get to the school. So kind of consider that.
Okay, I have a question over here.
Who's got a question here?
You say 5 paragraphs or 1 page. Do you want it to be double spaced, and should it have a certain heading on it?
That's a good question. Let's put it this way. I don't know, isn't 12 a good number? The font, is 12 good? How many like 12? I like 12, you know? I think it's good. 10, I got to start thinking too much. I think the one thing is on the Common App, since some of them limit the number of words, it doesn't become critical. I just always think like resumes and like essays should be one side. Because once you give people multiple pages, it just doesn't seem to work. I think that's the rule in resumes, even going for jobs. Say it in one. Yes? Go ahead.
I thought when they took the SATs, they listed the colleges that they want the score sent out to. So do they still need to record those scores on their application or not, if they already have that sent to the school?
That's a good question. If I'm applying to 4 schools and I took the SATs and I've already had them sent there, then to me, if I'm doing a Common App, I'm not going to self-report because it's just taking me time to do it. And remember what I said, if you don't self-report, that's not like looked at like, ha-ha, they're trying to hide something because you're going to send them your scores anyway. Go ahead.
Okay. I have a daughter who's taken some AP tests and she scored 4s on them. So how does she go ahead and get that sent to the colleges?
Now, the APs, you have to get in touch with the College Board. Go on College Board. There's a whole direction now of sending AP scores to colleges, right? And one thing we said, just real briefly, just remember, there is no guarantee. Now, this you can take to the bank. Not everything I said tonight you can, but this you can take to the bank. There is no guarantee that if you got a 4 or 5 in an AP, that you're going to get college credit at the school you go to. It all depends on the school. It depends on your major. It depends on the test that you're trying to get credit for. So what we always say is, here's what happens. When you send those scores there and you go to that school, they eventually send you a letter and they say, we've evaluated your AP scores and we're going to grant you, let's say, 9 credits or 11 credits. And they'll tell you exactly what they do. But you have to get them sent officially. Go ahead, and then we'll come over here.
Oh, okay. My son wanted to get his GPA so he could figure out what's a match, what's a reach, what's a safety school. And they gave him a GPA, and they said it's good as of February 2014. And he did a lot better at the end of 2014, or in the spring of 2014. And so his match, reach, safety schools are different. How can we get that updated?
We have it. In other words, his individual counselor has it, I have it, Mrs. Allender has it. That was all recalculated in July. So in other words, the only official GPAs for underclassmen are done at the end of 9th grade and the 10th grade and at the end of 11th grade. So that's up to date. And our class size for our senior class, eligible people, is 1,010. That doesn't mean 1,010 will be there next June, but that's the number. In other words, we use what we call the 10-day number, and we lock it in so that when we send the information to the colleges, if all of a sudden 35 people mysteriously disappear, it's not going to affect our students that are here now. And we think that's important, you know, because if you allow that number to keep changing, all of a sudden, you know, now your position can change. So they can get that from us. We have it.
On the teacher recommendations, are they uploaded electronically or are they sent mailed?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't think I did a good job on that. With Common Application, you know, and I didn't do this, so I apologize. Common Application, the student invites the teacher via here's what they do. In Common App, you go to recommendations. They put the teacher's name, the subject area, and the teacher's email. Common App will send an email to the teacher saying, you know, Bill Travers has invited you to do a college recommendation. The teacher accepts, does it. The student looks on their Common App and they see teacher invited, okay? And then they can follow how that's going. And it's the same thing with the counselor. You must put the counselor's name in there. So you put Mrs. McCreary's name, her email. She gets invited. She accepts. She does her part of the Common App, right? And the transcript, it's called the secondary school report. The transcript goes with the counselor's part of the recommendation.
Then you don't need an envelope.
No. Now, that's right. The teacher, now, the thing, now when I say an envelope, let's not confuse it. If you're going to a teacher to do a letter of recommendation, because I didn't even mention that in here, so it's not like we skipped it, it wasn't part of our presentation. The student's job is this. I've got 5 schools, none of them are Common App. I go to my teacher, I give them 5 envelopes with a stamp on it, okay? The name of the school and the admission, and I ask the teacher, these are the schools that I would like your recommendation to go to. So that's definite. I'm glad you brought that up. Good, good, good. What's that? If they're not Common App, yes. Now, why that's done is that's the way the school wants it. They don't want it part of the application. They want it independently. The good news is when we made that switch, it speeded up the process and we really haven't had any problems. And that's the other good thing with you know, email or whatever they send you. If something's missing, they're going to tell you. So if you say, we only have one of your teacher recommendations, well, then you go to them and say, did you get your recommendation out? They say, yes. And the other one says, no, then you got them, okay? So, but I'm telling you, this I can say without a shadow of a doubt. Our people do a great job in the recommendations, getting them out, but that is a good point. Yes?
About the Common App.
Go ahead.
Does this time out, when you're filling it out, do you have to fill it out in one sitting?
No, you can continue. You can do it a little at a time. So you can do any parts of it, and then you log out. It's already there. Now, I think what it is like a lot of these things, if there's no activity, like you just have it open, it'll tell you it's going to time out. But what happens is this, as you're doing it, you can stop anytime you want, go away and come back. Okay? Yes, go ahead. And
on one of your slides, you had said 2 teacher recommendations were required on the Common App. And my son has gone through all of this, and it looks like only 1 is required.
Okay, here's what I'm suggesting. Common App will tell you what the school requires. You can invite as many teachers as you want. So you can go to 3 teachers and invite them. Now, when you go through the Common App and it's time to send your application to, say, I'll just say Penn, you have to assign which ones of the recommendations you want to go there. So the number of recommendations is really up to the individual school. Some schools will say we only take 1. Some will say we require 2. Some will say we'll take up to 3. Now here's the key thing, and I'm saying this more to the students. Decide who your number 1 is, decide who your number 2 is, and decide who your number 3. So if it's 1, you better make sure the one you think is going to be the best goes, or the teacher you want to have, right? Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Now I'll do this. For the people at NPTV, we want to say thanks and, you know, good night to you. And we're going to keep on going with these questions. But, hey, feel free if you want to leave. And, again, we really appreciate you coming out. It shows that you have tremendous interest in your students. And the students have interest in themselves. Go ahead.